The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL, but we're the ones who have encouraged you all along to like and share them on your favorite social media and with your friends and neighbors, because if it's happening on the Treasure Coast, you'll hear about it on the Sue-Ellen-Sanders Show. Here's your host, Sue-Ellen-Sanders.
Welcome to the show and welcome to my guests. My guests today actually represent several different organizations in St. Lucie County and on the Treasure Coast. And I'm really pleased to have with me Greg Smith, who is the Executive Director of Mustard Seed Ministries of Fort Pierce, as well as Sarah's Kitchen, which is a service of Mustard Seed Ministries. Now, I didn't know this, so this is something that's somewhat new. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. Stacy Malinowski is also here. She is Program Director of Mustard Seed, and we're going to find out the update of what is going on with both organizations as we talk to Greg and Stacy. Welcome.
Thank you for having us, Sue Ellen.
So, Greg, I didn't know till you and I were chatting on the phone last week that Mustard Seed now has included Sarah's Kitchen as part of your ministry. Let's talk a little bit about what Mustard Seed includes from start to finish. What is your mission for, and do you cover more than just Fort Pierce, though? You cover all of St. Lucie County, correct?
Yes, that's correct. All of St. Lucie County.
How come it says Mustard Seed Ministries of Fort Pierce? Because that is where one of your buildings located? No, Stacy's going to say.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let Stacy cover it.
The Fort Pierce came because that was established in Fort Pierce by 4 downtown churches. So they thought the title should include where we were. And again, for us to go in and try to change that, it's not something that we have done yet, but it is all of St. Lucie County. He's correct. But it was the 4 downtown churches that allowed in Fort Pierce to be able to establish us.
So while we're talking about those 4 downtown churches, let's mention them now. Who are the
Absolutely.
4 churches that first started Mustard Seed?
Sure. Our founding churches were St. Andrew's Episcopal Church, First United Methodist on 7th Street. It was First Baptist on Orange, and then it was First Presbyterian over on Hartman. But that also converted over to Indian River Presbyterian.
Right.
So they took that on. So those 4 were the ones that actually, through the ministerial group that they were working on, determined that we needed to create a clearinghouse.
A clearinghouse, and that's how they called it. And that,
correct.
But your mission has evolved over the years.
I'd like to go. Yes, it has.
Yes.
In many ways.
Okay, let's talk about that, Greg.
Yeah. Well, it expanded because it was started in 1986, and expanded from the thought process of serving just Fort Pierce area to serving the entire county. And our current mission statement is that we give hope and help to individuals and families during hardship or crisis, meeting the spiritual and material needs of the whole person and family. And that last part of it, the whole person and family, is really what we look at and what we focus on. People come to us all the time with, in their opinion, one need. They may need help with rent or help with food. What we normally find is when they come to us with one need, they actually have about 4 needs.
Or more.
Or more.
Yeah.
And so what we do through our intake process is really work with that person to understand all of their needs and try to help address their needs. If we're not able to partner with other agencies within the county to help that individual.
Well, sometimes the need is just a symptom of what's going on. And with your contacts and with your connections throughout the Treasure Coast, you can also help target what is at the root of what's going on, whether it's, but it could be something as minor as just an illness that was a sudden illness, or a car accident that created a chain effect, or it could be something as long-reaching as alcohol and drug abuse.
Oh, absolutely. And quite often we find people and we help people that come in and say, I never needed help before in my life, but my car broke down, or like you said, I have an illness, or someone in my family has an illness, and that they say that we're all about one illness away from needing help or being in poverty. And so that one episode puts the person into a tailspin that they're not able to get out of themselves. And that's where we're able to step in.
When I grew up, it was typical as a young adult to say, okay, we'll have 6 months' salary put away in the bank, or as a family, we'll have 6 months put away. So if something happened to us, we would have this cushion to fall back on. When I mention that to anyone now, they just laugh at me. Stacy, you're agreeing. Yes, you're from that same generation where, get a little bit close to the mic there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very much so. It's how I was raised to also say, when you go to work, you do the best you can, 100%, blah, blah, blah. We were established with a great work ethic, but then you turn around and you talk about saving money. Well, I'm one of 9. So it wasn't easy, but that was exactly the philosophy my father had for us.
And, there are so many other differences in this generation, too. I don't even want to get into it. Both Stacy and I have children that are in their late 20s. And so we can relate. And, part of being the generation that grew up with technology and having facts easily accessible and thinking that they know everything. But also, one thing is still the same. People are hesitant to ask for help because they're embarrassed to ask for help.
Very much so. And especially, different generations are going to choose. Some will come in today, well, I need all this stuff. Let us, can you give me all this? And that's really not it. It's actually us being able to vet them when they walk in the door, determine what their crisis is, being able to minimize that crisis as much as possible so it doesn't get worse, but more importantly, then engage them and making sure that they can understand why they could not pay their bills. So part of that is we might ask for a bank statement. It's not yes, we want to see that they're not sitting on $10,000 in the bank and want help, but more importantly what it is that they're identifying what their needs and their wants are. And usually the wants will definitely always overexceed the needs.
As far as helping people, your doors are open for some of the times when people call Mustard Seed, you're just going to refer them right away. You do the intake,
correct?
But the network of people that they might need.
The reason why there's 17 services on our paper that we're talking about, you'll need all of that at some point in serving clients. Instead of, we do partner quite well in the community, but more importantly, to have those resources and have that ability to do that, you can stabilize them a lot quicker. And then you close them out with, it's usually something financial, hasn't earned enough money, doesn't have the education necessary, can't, is not moving forward. And those types of things kind of get stuck. And that's where poverty really takes the biggest hit. And they think that's just the way they're going to be. But we have options to come out of that. And that's a class that we teach there as well. And it's the Getting Ahead program. It's a Ruby Payne model. And it's pretty involved. But at the end, there's definitely usually phenomenal outcomes.
17 different services. Let's talk about them. Greg?
Okay. One of the things I wanted to say, too, when you talk about people coming in with need, we all know that over the last couple of years, wages have been fairly stagnant in the community, in our society, and yet we've had an inflation rate of about 40%. A lot of that inflation has hit things that are critical to families, and that's food, gasoline, things like that, rent. So people that are making the same amount of money that they were making 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and they said, well, we could make it on this money, they end up needing our help because that same amount of money just no longer pays the bills. So they didn't do anything wrong, and that's one of the dilemmas with helping people. They'll say, well, what did I do wrong? Well, in that case, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just inflation took over the things that you were doing right.
I think a lot of people in other parts of the country are affected somewhat by what we're talking about, but I know that people in DC or New York or Chicago or places that are used to a high cost of living would be shocked to know how little Fort Pierce has. The prices have raised to the extent that we're almost on a par with big city living prices, although the salaries are still at small town prices. And that's, I mean, even looking down to South Florida, to the Miami Fort Lauderdale area, you know, unfortunately, fortunately for them, the salaries are higher. But we used to be, you know, St. Lucie County used to be the bedroom community, and people could work elsewhere and live here cheaper. But that's not so anymore, and it's only made your job harder. So talking about the different services and the different locations, let's give people an outline of who you serve and how you serve them.
Okay. Our locations, we have two locations, one at 8311 South US 1 in Fort Pierce and 8611 in Port St. Lucie.
Okay, so Stacy, you're used to me asking this. Give me a marker on that. They're both on US 1. One is right by the barbecue place as you turn in. At US 1. Is that the barbecue place that closed?
It is.
It is. Okay. So it's by the closed Sonny's Barbecue.
Correct.
Okay. And that's a sign of the times, too. So you think you're pulling into the restaurant parking lot, but then you take a hard right, and it's right there. And then what is the little shopping center that the Port St. Lucie one is in?
That's Fiesta Plaza.
Okay.
And that's the 8311.
That's the 8311 one. And as far as services, what is the best way for someone to reach out when they need your help? Do they call? Do they email? Do they go on your website?
They actually do all of the above.
Okay.
They will go look through the website to see if there's what's out there, and then they usually will pick up the phone and call the office, which is 772-465-6021. When they talk about rental assistance and financial, a lot of those we will pre-screen over the phone before they come. We don't want to waste their time if it's not going to be something that they would qualify for, and because they just get angrier when they do that. So we try to do what we can over the phone and then create our appointments with them. But I will tell you, there's not a lot of money available right now in the community when it comes to rental assistance. Agencies that have helped usually in the past, as we all work together on, we're seeing very little.
Well, the same amount of money for rental assistance that was around 3 or 4 years ago goes 40% less far or more when it comes to rentals here. And it's a booming market for landlords, but just about nobody else. And it's sad, but all you can do is hope that, and we know looking forward that more affordable housing is coming to St. Lucie County, but it just can't go fast enough.
You're correct, and then you look at a higher rate of homelessness, and people that have never been homeless before are homeless because they can't afford the rent, and it's definitely a challenge without a doubt.
And of course, the cycle of homelessness is such that, you know, once you lose your home, it's hard to keep your job. Or once you lose your car, it's hard to keep your job and then hard to keep your home. So there's a lot of people in need. But luckily, there's other things that you help with other than rent assistance.
That's correct. And a lot of times the assistance starts with a sort of a conversation with the person and allowing us to look at their finances to help them see where they can start to maybe shore up some of their finances to assist them. It's not just about writing a check. It is about helping the person get into a mindset of understanding what do they need to do to start to meet some of the bills. And again, we talked about wants and needs. We go back and stress the needs and try to see where they can reduce some of the wants.
I'm going to sound generational again when I say this, but there was a time where we taught those type of skills in school as part of like junior achievement. They had junior achievement classes that came in, and the banks came in and they taught fiscal responsibility at different levels as part of school. And there's still a little bit of that going on, but there were kids, I remember even when I was in college, there were kids who thought that their emergency charge card was for when they wanted pizza. Wants and needs.
Yes.
Like Greg said, you have got to understand.
Yeah.
And also people who are needing other help, if they're getting fast food and they're getting takeout and they're paying for fees for people to bring their food to them. All of those things are adding up, so they're creating a situation where they can't ever get out of debt.
Well, that's true, and that's one of the reasons that one of the first services that they normally receive from us is food. It's certainly a staple of what we do every day.
And that is a great segue into Sarah's Kitchen, isn't it?
Yes.
So let's talk about how you took over the program and why you did.
Well, I'd like to say, and we all like to say, that we merged together.
Okay,
And sometimes
that sounds
I think
better.
The thought process of taking over, it was actually a mutual merging. The previous executive director of Sarah's Kitchen had been on the Mustard Seed Board for many years, and we all saw it a very fitting collaboration or merger when she decided to retire and travel the world. So it was very good. Mustard Seed provides food pantry 3 days a week, Monday through Wednesday, the morning at our Fort Pierce store and the afternoon at our Port St. Lucie store. And that really helps people. We give about 35 to 40 pounds of food on average, which is normally a full shopping cart. And I don't know if you've been shopping lately for food, but a full shopping cart is quite a bit of money. But we give that so that people can really start to financially get back on their feet by giving them that little bit of assistance. Where Sarah's Kitchen comes in, Sarah's Kitchen is still running 5 nights a week in a different neighborhood each night. We serve usually using the kitchens from local churches, and then we're able to, when we provide people with food from our pantry that they can take home and cook, especially if culturally they want to cook something that they're used to eating, they grew up eating, but then we can direct them to one of our Sarah's Kitchen sites, depending on where they live, so they can also go by and get hot prepared meals. So we do that 5 nights a week, and on Thursdays we have a mobile service where we go out to some of the homeless camps to make sure that they have sustainable food as well. And then we also cook for another church that goes up to one of the parks and serves.
How do you partner and not duplicate services with other agencies that are providing food services, including meal services? I mean, for example, we've got Treasure Coast Food Bank, you have Graceway Village. How do you create a network that covers everybody without spending the time and money and duplicating? Either of you? By the way, don't wait for me to ask a question. I know you have stories. I know you have examples. Just let her go. You can tell me about anything.
We work very well with the Treasure Coast Food Bank. As a matter of fact, that's where we get a lot of our food to help distribute. So they're definitely a partner.
So they're a
with us.
supplier for
They're a
you
supplier.
too.
That's
Yeah.
correct. And with Graceway Village and other organizations, we work with them. It would be almost impossible to track every person
Of course,
to try
yeah,
and
yeah.
make sure that they didn't go to more than one place. So we don't really worry about that so much. What we understand is if the person has a full refrigerator or cupboard, they don't make the rounds as much. So people and the hot meals, they're only going to get 1 or 2 hot meals when they come up. So that only takes them so far out. Place like Graceway Village is enough out of our other kitchens range that they're probably serving mostly people that won't come to us,
Right.
and the same with us. And maybe there's a little bit of a crossover, but it's not so much that we think that it should be stopped or investigated.
But you're right. A lot of times people will go to what's closest to them, especially when it's to get meals. So 5 days a week, if people wanted to travel, if they had the transportation to travel, they could go to one of the 5 locations or one of the locations. What are the locations? We don't have to do it in a list. Maybe just conversation-wise.
Okay. So we have essentially 3 locations in Fort Pierce.
Okay.
One of the locations, First Bethel Baptist Church, serves 2 nights a week. We have a location in Lakewood Park that serves 1 night a week. And on that Tuesday, they will both serve at the same time. And then we have a church with the Notre Dame Catholic Church also serves on Friday nights. And then we also serve Port St. Lucie with 2 locations on Monday and Wednesday to make sure that we kind of cover the whole county and we're accessible to everyone. Someone could, if they wanted to, go each night of the week because we don't take down names, we don't make people sign up to receive the food. To be honest with you, most of the people needing the food may go to 2 locations that are close, like in Fort Pierce, but rarely would they drive all the way to Port St. Lucie
Right.
to just get a free meal.
Right.
And again, they're already strapped. They're not going to put in the
money
expense.
for the gas and the time. And also, if they have 2 meals, maybe they can eat the next one the next day for lunch or whatever.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so save the time and energy of getting that. All this information is, I know you have social media, all this information is readily available on your website as well. Stacy, you have Facebook and Instagram. Are there any other social?
Yes, there is an account, but Facebook is usually our
Yeah.
primary mean for
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah, so you could find the Mustard Seed Ministries Facebook page and like it and follow it. And once you follow it, you click that follow button, and then you'll get the information about the different locations and the different needs. So food, you talk about, is it Maslow's hierarchy of need and all the things that people need to survive, and food is definitely one of the big ones. And then there's shelter and there's clothes, and one of them is got to do with other people, with the comfort of other people. I don't remember what the 5th one is though, but at any rate, and of course Maslow that states, and he's a psychiatrist, and I'm pulling from college psychology classes that were like 45 years ago, so it's not really fresh in my mind, but those are the things you needed to be self-actualized, so you couldn't be at your best unless you knew all those things were happening. And so that's kind of common sense when you think about it, that you want to know where you're going to sleep at night. You want to know, family is one of them too, where your family is, that you're going to have food in your belly, that you're going to be comfortable. And then once you have all of those things taken care of, then you can go out and maybe be a better person than you were the day before.
Yeah, you have a much more solid foundation to go into life on.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say something too before we get away from the food aspect. Is Saturday the 13th is the National Association of Letter Carriers nationwide food drive. Mustard Seed spearheads that in St. Lucie County. So I know people will be listening this morning for that food drive.
Right.
We would like for everyone to just put a few cans of food, maybe a bag of rice or a bag of beans, into a bag and leave it out for the letter carrier. They'll pick it up, bring it in. Between Mustard Seed and some other organizations in the county, we receive the food, we're able to sort it, and hand out that food throughout the year, at least throughout the summer. That food will probably be gone by the summer. But we definitely depend on the community members that just put a few cans of food and a bag of rice and a bag and leave it out for their letter carrier to pick up.
There was a time where they used to leave bags for us. Do they still? Nope. Just put it out in a bag, or however you like. And if you're listening to this show Saturday morning, then you still have until your mail comes, or you might be able to catch up with the mail or drop it off at the post office. But if you miss that the postal carriers food drive, that you can always donate food to Mustard Seed. Bring it to can they bring it to the Fort Pierce location?
To either location,
Yeah.
yes.
And also to Treasure Coast Food Bank. And there's food drives that go on a regular basis, and they're not always. It used to be where the food drives were right around Thanksgiving time, but the food drives are still they're strong around Thanksgiving. But Greg, as you said, around this time of year is where the resources are getting thin on the food, and it's time to store up your resources so you can help other people.
Oh, absolutely. And when you think about, we're getting close to school being out, so the children are at home more, so families are going to invest more money and time in preparing food for the children that are home that may be having meals while they're away at school otherwise.
And for people who don't have a lot of money, or whose kids were on free or reduced meals, a lot of times their main meals were at home. And so unless they're part of a summertime program, like through Boys and Girls Club, or somebody who can continue to give them food, they're needing extra help. And Stacy, I know you've got one thing I love about Stacy is, for years I've known, if I knew someone who needed help, or if whatever agency I was working for needed help, it was like, call Stacy. And Stacy was on speed dial on my phone, because even if she couldn't help that one individual specifically, she knew who could. So what about those families, the families who are not just regular everyday struggling, but they're free and reduced lunch kids who all of a sudden don't get that food anymore? What can they do?
That's kind of difficult, though, when we talk about food, and especially summer food. There's a financial commitment to that we have to make, and be able to make sure that those children can get that food in the summer. But it doesn't always work like that, because there's not enough money sometimes and to do that. But the families are struggling beyond. They're coming in the door where we are, as Greg talked about. There's lines out the door, and they only get to come once a month because it's an emergency food pantry. So it's not duplicated people. It's not the same one coming all 3 days, because we are open Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in Fort Pierce from 9 to 11:45, and in Port St. Lucie from 1 to 4. So those are open pretty much all day, and they can go to either one. They just can't go to both.
And when you say pantry, that's where they get
Correct.
the cart of groceries.
Yes.
Absolutely. And again, the food is obviously a critical need, obviously. And then when you look at, like you said, just the basic needs, and they do worry about that. Right now, as far as my concern is, the issues are for the people that are on fixed income. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be able to afford a $5 carton of eggs. They're not going to be able to do the milk. And then you start losing some of their nutrients. These are older people. These are disabled people. And these are the ones that I think we see a lot of. But then again, the average person that has no income, okay, it's very hard. That we can give them food, we can give them clothing, and on each and every day, it's a challenge, whatever walks through the door. But we're equipped to be able to handle most all of those situations. I can't say everything completely, but we do. And if we don't, we know where to turn to try to get the help. And then we follow up to make sure that it happened.
And we do support a summer food program for the kids as well. we quite often see that the things that we know kids will eat and would be nutritious for them, we haven't always received as donations. So we take some of the money that's been donated to us, and we go out and actually buy boxes of cereal and buy other things to make sure that what we're putting in the kids' bags are something that they're going to take home and eat.
If people were listening to this show or watching us on YouTube and you needed to tell them the most important things to donate for that purpose, what would you say? Peanut butter?
Well, it depends. Greg can definitely talk about Sarah's Kitchen,
Okay.
and I'm going to tell you we do. And it's the
Okay.
same, some of them are the same, like pasta, rice,
Uh-huh.
that becomes a staple, even though it's more of a starch, but a lot of it is whole wheat stuff too,
Right.
so you'll get that. But as far as the food drive goes, we'll need canned vegetables, we'll need canned meat, okay? Things that we know that family can make a meal that might last for another day or so. You want to add to yours?
Canned fruits as well. A lot of people, when they think of donating, they think of the green beans or the black-eyed peas or something like that. What people don't get enough of are just the canned fruits, and that's kind of a treat to them as well. And it's one of the things that when we're donated just throughout the year, when people donate food to us, they rarely think of that fruit cocktail or canned peaches or those kind of things. And those stay good for a long time, and just makes the meal a more well-balanced. Both at Mustard Seed, what we give out in the pantry, and Sarah's Kitchen, our focus is always to give a well-balanced, nutritious meal, or ability to make several well-balanced, nutritious meals. So we want to bring in all the different fruit groups.
So both through the pantry and Sarah's Kitchen, you're looking at canned or a box or non-refrigerated items. You're not
Correct.
talking about, you don't want someone to give you a bag of apples.
Non-perishables.
That's not something that you can use.
No, and that's where, working with the Treasure Coast Food Bank, we do get, on occasion, depends on what they have available, things like cabbage and apples, and I think we've been getting in some really good oranges and stuff lately.
And you use that with the Sarah's Kitchen, correct?
We do that. We do occasionally, or we will put it out during the pantry too.
Okay.
We bag those so that people are being able to take fresh fruits and vegetables home. When we have it, we try to equitably distribute it so that people are receiving it.
They were very happy to see watermelon today.
Yes. But today we were giving out potatoes, carrots, watermelons, and some of the oranges as well, along with our staple of
Dry goods.
canned goods, dry goods, and meat. Everyone gets meat as a protein, and so that, again, we just want a good, well-balanced meal.
If you're going through your pantry and you're pulling a few things out, then the things you want to look at to reevaluate is your cans, meat, things like canned chili, canned beans, vegetables, canned fruit, rice, packaged pasta. How about individual packaged things that are then repackaged in a big, you know what I'm talking about? Like, I know when my kids were little, they love a certain type of food, and I'd go get like the big package of it for their lunches, and the next day they would say, "Oh, we don't like that anymore." Is that stuff that you could use if it's packaged in a sealed package?
If the product has an expiration date on it, that's what's, you can determine that. So, and we sometimes they give us things that are a little out of date, but we know what to do with that. But more importantly for us is to get the nutrition piece of this in. And sometimes there are snacks available and things like that for them. So if they want the little cup of pudding, sometimes they come in 2s or 4s.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that,
absolutely.
yeah, that's kind of along the lines of what I was thinking. So you don't want, my husband and I have a constant battle over expiration dates of things. He thinks an expiration date is just a suggestion, and I think it's the law. So so we're somewhere. I know it's
Sorry.
not the law. I know it's not the law, but so we're somewhere. And when I talk about a suggestion here, look, oh, well, it's a year expired. It's fine. But you can tell the difference in the taste of something. It loses its flavor. And in some cases, if it's something like tuna fish or, I wouldn't touch that. But like if something is coming up on expiration and say, it expires the next month, is it still worthy to give to you all or do you need to, what do you think? Are you in Marty's camp or are you not?
Well, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of codes. So best by dates, pack by date, sell by date. It gets very confusing. But there, you can reach out to the USDA and see what are the guidelines to go with. That's my safest comment.
Okay.
And the other comment is we would prefer to get things that would show end date.
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, we do have volunteers that come in and check every can that we receive because we don't want people to be sick for any reason or to feel like, it's bad enough on the people that are coming into us that they need to go somewhere to ask for food. We don't want them to feel like we're disrespecting them by giving them something that might be out of date when they look at it. Even though it may technically be good, and if you had to, you could eat it and wouldn't get sick. I think it's a little bit of the just making sure that we respect the people, and so we would ask donations to be in date.
And honestly, with the cans and the packages, you usually have a year or two. It's not like it's a short window of
It's not an
opportunity.
absolute date, that's true.
Yeah. Something else to be thinking about, too, if you're preparing for giveaway, is like the next time you see a BOGO at Publix or Winn-Dixie or someplace, and you say, I can't possibly eat that food, I don't need that many. Well, have what I do is I have a bag that stays in my pantry that I put extra things in as the time goes, and so I'm going to go home and put it out for the mailman now because I've got it all ready to go because they were a lot of BOGOs that I'd been putting aside. The other thing is, you're getting ready, God help us all, to start hurricane season. They've published the names of the new hurricanes coming up. And if you were somebody who was organized and had hurricane supplies that you had put aside, this would be a good time to clean those out, get new stuff, and donate your stuff that is not expired, that still has plenty of time, that you can donate it either to the Postal Service, drop it off in the post office, or you could drop it off at the Fort Pierce Mustard Seed location or Treasure Coast Food Bank.
Greg, you want to talk about the post of as far as the locations of where the food, if they don't able to put it out in their neighborhood, but they can drop it off, so the 25th Street and
Yes, basically each of the large post offices are going to have a drop-off that day. If the people miss maybe the mail carrier, letter carrier, they can go to the closest post office. And we're going to be set up at each of the post offices with tables and volunteers and places that they can drop off. If they are hearing this and it's maybe on the Sunday episode when they hear that and they've missed it by a day, something that you've said over and over is they can certainly just go to either of the mustard seed locations and just drop off the food there. We'll take it in, and again, it goes right into the weight of what we're picking up for this postal carrier drive.
We've covered food pretty fairly here, and we talked about some of your sources for food. But what are your sources for the other services that you provide?
Well, and I was just sitting there looking at this. We've talked about rent and mortgage, so we understand how that process goes. But we also find medical homes for people, okay? And that's really important in our community. If you don't have insurance, then it's really difficult to get healthy. And to do so there's about 4 or 5 agencies that we refer to depending on what it is. And Hands Clinic is one of the big ones because it's very comprehensive and covers a lot, including with a dental clinic. So whether it be Florida Community Health, which can be sliding fee scales, those kinds of things, come and see us. We'll do what we can to try to help you find that if you cannot afford the insurance.
And just for people who are not familiar with Hands Clinic, it doesn't just cover hands. It is the HANDS stands for Helping and
Health Access Network of Delivery of
Thank you.
Systems.
Okay. So, but if you are just looking at a list of
Yeah.
things, and you might think that it doesn't cover all
Correct.
those services, but it covers. You have to not have insurance.
You cannot have insurance. You can have Medicaid, long as that your copay is over $400. Okay, and then you would qualify for that. And the other part of the Hands Clinic does have a dental side to it, which is really great, and that's really blooming right now. But being able to go to the Hands Clinic, we help them with their applications, and then we send them over to Hands or Florida Community Health or wherever it is. There's a few other little places that we could do that with. So that's just the medical side of it. Prescription assistance is pretty big with us. Okay, so we do offer prescriptions for people that cannot afford them. And again, work with places that do like a med data program that allows to get the really expensive drugs coming in at no cost depending on the application process.
Something else I wasn't aware of with prescription drugs is a lot of times if you have a need, not an immediate need, but a long-term need, you can actually write the company.
You can request to that company and ask for an application, then you mail it in to them, and they'll let you know whether you're approved or you're not.
So, and the mustard seed.
We don't do that part of it. We help them find
But
the
you can give them
agencies.
guidance
Correct.
on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and the other one is, again, we talked about clothing assistance. People can come in and get clothes in need, and they'll get 12 items of clothes for each child. They produce a Social Security card so we can validate. It's important that we make sure that we validate our crises when people need them. But more importantly, then they can come once every 3 months.
And then also, if you have tracking, that helps you when you're applying for assistance for receiving funds.
Correct.
Yes. We have to show the funders where their money goes and how it's spent. And a lot of times the funders will, especially if it's the federal government that we get grants from, they'll set the parameters of what the person has to show to qualify. So sometimes, people will look at us and they'll ask why we're asking these questions or why they have to go through a certain process, and it's because the funding agency has put those guidelines in for us to follow. We are fair to everyone. We treat everyone the same, and that means that we follow the guidelines for every person that walks up. So that makes sure that we can continue to ask for the funds. In most cases, we receive funds every year, and so we just make sure that we follow the guidelines for what the people need.
And most of the things that you're asking people are forthright questions. But that's a good explanation of why you need that information.
Yes.
Other than through the federal government, how else do you get funding?
Well, you'll get funding through United Way. And again, we have to apply for it. It's not a given.
Right.
So
Yes, I know that.
The county has a
and Greg writes quite a few grants
Yes.
to make that happen.
I write a lot of grants that we're not sure about. We do get some and we don't get some. It's just part of the process. Can I talk a little bit too? I know that we're coming close to the end of the show. What people don't realize is the need doesn't go away. We have sort of this roller coaster. Right now we're having a big food drive, so everyone will think about food. They won't think about food by middle of the summer or the end of summer. They start to think about food again during Thanksgiving and Christmas. But we're actually needing a consistent food process all throughout the year. We buy a lot of food out of our general funds to support that. It's the same with rent, utilities, and other things. It's all on sort of a roller coaster. We'll get funding, and once it's gone, we wait 3 or 4 more months to try to get funding again. I would like to ask the people that are in the community if they would consider donating financial donations to Mustard Seed throughout the year, because during those troughs of time where we're not getting funding and it's not on everyone's agenda, we still have the same need. We still have the lines of people coming in.
How can people donate? I mean, what are the ways? Do you have special events for asking for funds, or do you just hope that they will ask and respond to your requests through social media and such?
Well, I'll let Stacy talk about a
Okay. couple
couple of the fundraisers, but yeah, they can go to our website, www.mustardseedslc.org, and there's a donate button. And one of the things we looked at was it's always a dilemma with how much to ask from people. We know that everyone's inflation has gone up, but we looked at to now go through a fast food restaurant or certainly a normal sit-down restaurant. About the least you're going to pay for a good meal is $15, and we're asking people to donate $15. Go on our website, hit the donate button, and donate consistent $15 a month. So for the cost of basically one fast food restaurant, that $15 helps us feed 5 meals with the ability
Wow.
that we
Yeah.
have other food
Yeah.
already coming in.
So people can do a recurring donation, and they don't have to deal with it every month. You can just.
That's correct.
put
You
it-
can set
okay.
it to be recurring.
Okay.
We do get checks in the mail where people just send us a check at our locations or walk into our locations and donate a check. And we're appreciative of that as well.
What are some of the fundraisers that you have coming up?
Well, May 20th, we'll have a ladies' tea. We've sold all of our tables out, so we're very excited about that. That will come about. And of course, at the end of the year, we do our Silver Bells program, so that comes out, and that stands out pretty good for us. At this point,
Is that the one where everybody gets on buses? And
you can get the
tours?
buses, but we may have a little new twist this year. We're not
Okay.
announcing it yet.
Okay, so something a surprise, and those are two of your big fundraisers. And I know I've had the privilege of being part of the tea. As a matter of fact, I was a table captain one year.
Yep.
And then we just have a few more minutes. What, Cliff, maybe 7 minutes or so? But I do want to touch on the thrift stores.
That's right.
too.
I'm watching the clock.
Yeah, 6 minutes. I was really close. So the thrift stores are one of my favorite places to go, and that's because even though people have to pay for their clothes, they pay a pittance. It's not like that other thrift place that starts with G that we won't mention, where you might pay just as much as a new outfit on sale somewhere. I mean, you could thumb through stuff. You can get stuff that's fun, or you can get stuff you need. I know at the Fort Pierce store you have a
Right.
boutique,
Yes.
and so you even have kind of like higher end a little bit with your thrifting.
And in our furniture section, we have a lot of people that donate furniture as they're maybe getting new furniture or if they're planning on moving. Some people are downsizing, and furniture is really big for us. We'll send a truck out to pick up the furniture from you, give you a tax receipt that you can count that off your taxes, and that's a big thing. Rather than people going to a buy here, pay here, and buy furniture that is broken and fallen apart years before they could pay for it, they could come to us and get some really nice, clean, well-made furniture at a very marked discount from anything they would buy at the regular stores, and that they can get that and go home and have something that'll last them for years.
And they could get it. You have sales too all the
Well,
time.
that's exactly
Okay.
because Ronnie's
pulling
out
him
sick.
up,
He
yeah.
was going to come. So, but
Yeah.
he's also the one that also puts all those ads out through Facebook, and
Okay.
he gets very creative. I'll have to say that much. So we're looking at a Mother's Day sale. So today is the beginning of that sale, which is 50% off everything in the store, and that will stand through the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. Okay. So those 3 days are 50% off everything in the store. And then we have Memorial Day coming.
Yes.
Okay. And those days are the 24th, 25th, and 26th. And that's the 50% off everything in the store on those 3 days.
So that's and if you know people, it's not too early to be thinking about back to school if you want to thumb through things and look for stuff, especially if you have middle school or high school age kids. But also if you're moving and relocating, the cost of a moving company or to move your furniture, you might be better off donating your furniture and starting out fresh if you need to, and you know that you can donate it to Mustard Seed. So you will send a truck out. How much in advance do people have to give you notice for that?
If you call our main number, and you can call the 772-465-6021, we'll route you to our scheduler, and our scheduler just looks for how busy we are and what's
Right.
a convenient time for you.
Awesome.
We have some people that we can get within a couple of days, and some people say, well, it's going to be 2 weeks before I need it picked up, but I just want to go ahead and get on the books. And so we have various stages of what our schedule looks like.
So people can call and get routed to the scheduler right away, or you can drop things off. I know I'm a regular drop off. And you just inside the door, you can drop things off. And, it's not just clothes. When you're cleaning out clothes, when you're cleaning out your kitchen cabinets, when you're cleaning out pots and pans, living stuff, old CDs, DVDs, children's toys, board
Anything.
games,
Pretty
yes,
much.
books. There's a lot of different things that you can drop off for Mustard Seed. And of course, food all the time. Food is important and a need. We've been talking to Greg Smith and Stacy Malinowski with Mustard Seed Ministries, and also the Sarah's Kitchen program, which is one of the programs of Mustard Seed Ministries. Again, if you want more information, either to help, to donate, or to write Mustard Seed in your will, you can go online at www.mustardseedslc.org, or you can call them at 465-6021 is the main number. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Greg and Stacy, thank you so much for joining me today. We look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for
so very
having us.
much.
We'll see you again next week. Have a great day.
The Sue-Ellen Show. Weekend mornings, Saturdays at 7:05 a.m. and Sunday mornings at 7:05 a.m. as well, and sometimes even a surprise at like 11 or 1 o'clock during the weekend as well. You got to check out the schedule at WPSL.com, programming schedule, to find out where you can listen in. And the archives are on YouTube at WPSLTV.com.